Hi, good morning, and thank you for coming on a Monday morning first talk. So it's going to be a bit different, less tech and a bit more about storytelling in VR. First, a little bit of background. Some of you might know me and some others don't. So I've been working in virtual reality for the past 4 years now. I was at Jaunt for some time and also with another company, Condition One. And since 1 year or a year and a half now, I started my own company to produce content that matters to me and hopefully to other people as well, trying to make a difference and embrace more diversity in VR. And before that, I worked in film visual effects for more than 12 years, so my background is more in post-production, and I also directed and created some short animation movies and documentaries. But what I'm talking about today is a bit different. It's a fiction piece with live action. We had a team mostly of three people who work really closely together, and believe me, coming up with the right team and the right set of skills so that you have everything you need for VR is not that obvious. So we had Justin, who comes from game design, who really helped with thinking through all the concept and the design for the experience. He also shot and came up with the camera rig and helped with the editing. Ryan, she's a writer and director. She has worked for Pixar for many years, and now she's on her own, creating some web series and her own films. And me as creative director, co-creator, and executive producer, because basically I had to do everything on this. And first, I want to show you the trailer.
Do you think it could be a SQL injection attack?
This is mission critical. All of our jobs are on the line.
It could take us hours, days, even to get the site back up online.
If we don't get our site back up and running, this whole new venture is going to go down faster than a ditch in heated dog park.
Good for her. I'm sure she's happy being a stay-at-home mom with a lot less stress.
Hey, people might actually have to start talking to each other again.
Hey, bro. Looks like our backup idea isn't feasible.
May I speak with him, please?
Damn, dude. Tinder's down too. How's my date gonna find me?
Hey, somebody get this guy a raise, okay?
It wasn't all me.
Good job, son.
It was a team effort, really, Ray?
Keep up the fantastic work.
We have an amazing, yes sir, new product to roll out.
Do you think it could be a SQL injection attack?
This is mission critical. All of our jobs.
So it's thank you. So basically, it's a 10-minute piece, but there is really 20 minutes of content that was developed. And like we tried to show in the trailer, the idea is that you have 2 points of views and 2 stories going on at the same time. And we wanted to create an experience that lets you feel how it is to be a woman working in tech, like first-person point of view. We felt it was really important to be able to let the viewer experience directly how things happen, whether you are a man or a woman working in a male-dominated industry. And there have been so much in the news, over the last few years that there are a lot of people who don't perceive those issues as real because they don't experience them directly. So the idea was to, let you experience. But we wanted to do that in a fun and engaging way. It's not a training video for, HR. So we wanted to do it more like comedy style. and do something that is also very engaging from the VR experience point of view. And live action was important. We didn't want to use CG characters because we wanted to be able to convey, you know, with the voice of the actor, emotions and everything. And for the viewer, as you can see here a little bit, you know, you are in first person, so when you look down, you either have the body of a female or the body of a male in the story, and we wanted that to be really natural and not disturbing. So I'm going to talk about the design and then about the camera and then about the script, but all of this really happened in a very organic way where we had some ideas, we tested them, some of them didn't work, so we like came up with a new design. It's not like this is the final result, but you know, it took some, basically like 4 or 5 months to really refine and come up with a design that we thought would really be interesting. So you don't have much agency when you are in a 360 video. There is not much you can do as a viewer except turn around. So that's like the only control that you have. And we felt it was important to give some control to the viewer on what they can choose to look at, especially since we decided to have 2 stories happening at the same time, 2 different physical spaces, and 2 different, basically psychological spaces also based on who you are in the story. And we did quite a bit of testing for the point of view camera rig. But basically, we needed something that was not head-mounted because it's very cumbersome for the actors to have those huge things on their head. They need to be able to have some eye contact with the other actors. They need to be able to move freely. And we also did a lot of testing to find out like what was the right camera positioning, both to be comfortable with the actor and to feel natural. And it's not obvious because if you think, you know, in video you have only like a single point of rotation in the sphere, in the spherical view, but with your real head you have some translation. So, you know, when I look down, my eyes are here, and when I look up, my eyes level is here. So shooting with only one camera and, you know, one point of view, we came up with like an intermediate distance that kind of felt natural. It's like you want the other actors to look you in the eye when you are the viewer, but at the same time, you want the body to look natural. And we also decided to limit the camera moves because we did some tests and it really didn't feel, it felt a bit, you know, dizzying and not natural when people are moving around. And we didn't have a huge budget neither to do. So given all of those constraints, and we needed a camera that was like really tight and compact. So we chose the Freedom 360 Trio mount, which is, you know, 120 degrees, 3 cameras back to back. And we modify them with the 250 Antenna lenses to have as wide a field of view as possible. And then we created the rig, which is custom mounting done on a jib. And the jib gives us the possibility to just lower the rig in front of the face of the actor. So they don't have, you know, it's totally invisible, and when we stitch, and at the same time, they are free to move their head. We don't have to stabilize afterwards. So they can, you know, slightly move their body as long as the camera stays in front of their face. Where do I have those? Yeah. And then we computed exactly like what were the angles of the 2 cameras that we were using. We removed the 3rd camera, the one that was in front of the face, because it was creating more distance. So it's really something that has to be really close to the face. So you can see on the camera here that you can see the entire body. It's not cut except for the head. And also the way we design it is that the stitch line would be above the heads of people so that you could have natural interactions with the actors in the room. Like your arms wouldn't be cut by some stitch line, or we wouldn't have to like do crazy post-production, except we still did, but for other reasons. So I've done enough stitching in my life, I've worked on like 40 projects, I think, over the past 4 years. So I didn't want to have stitching get in the way. And then, so that's more for like the camera rig, finding the right way of shooting POV. And then there is also like, how do you write for first person point of view when you tell a story? Because the main thing is that our two main actors, you see his hands here and her hands here, and that's kind of, what you see, some part of their body and their hands, but you don't see their faces. So there is some difficulty for, writing when you cannot see the emotions of the main actors, on the screen. How do you convey those emotions, and how do you tell the story? Also, no camera movement was kind of limited the kind of story that we could write. And how do you write for comedy when you cannot use, fast cuts and surprises and short editing of dialogues and stuff like that? It's more like you have a long take, like in theater. So it has to be really written a bit differently than usual. And then the other difficulty was that we have two simultaneous stories going on at the same time, and they are synchronized. They are happening in real time. So between scenes, they exchange like Skype calls, phone messages, and writing for synchronization was not that obvious. So at some point, we really had to put like those two scripts together and find out like that the timing was right, that the dialogues would happen, exactly at the same time when we wanted them. And then in the end, you can see like on the first line is the female point of view, and the viewer is just watching a few beats and then shifting and seeing the other beats. So what you end up with is that each viewer is seeing a different story. So it's like doing your own editing. And then you can compare with other people who saw the story, and you might have missed something that they saw, and people really enjoyed that. And then for the directing, we did a lot of rehearsal with some improvisation to like improve the script. We worked a lot with the blocking, and we also tried, and I'm not going to say too much about that, like shifting to a third-person point of view. Did it make sense for the last scene? But the rehearsal was really important, especially for the actors to get used to this camera in their face. And I'm going to show you, this was a bit of torture. I mean, we don't see it too much here, but basically we told them to like push their head as much as they could, aside, so that we could position the camera. Like we did a lot of testing. If the camera is here, it's too much in the front, and the body doesn't look natural. It really has to be like, between your shoulders and here. So one of them was kind of had less problem than the other to be able to like, and also it's difficult for them because there is the physical challenge, but also the fact that they have to act with someone while they are looking at the ceiling or type on the computer while they cannot see what they are doing. So it was not obvious for them. And of course, the synchronized performances, because there is communication going on, and sometimes they have to answer to someone that is not there in the scene. So because we were shooting, only 180 on each side, we had the actor in the back, the one that is supposed to be in the other space, talk to them so that they would have the same rhythm, and we were trying to time so that everything would fit. So the editing, when we finished the shooting and we started the editing, it was a bit challenging to get all those two stories synchronized, because even if the script was carefully planned, even if we rehearsed with the actors, the natural performance of actors is not always timed, precisely to the second or something. So we had to be really creative in the editing to be able to bring those two stories together and have everything match. Sometimes we had to cut in the middle of a scene and do some morph edit, like rematch two different positions so that it's seamless. And then we had a little bit of post-production, because most of the story, or at least one half of the story, is happening in a startup where they are coding and they are trying to solve the emergency over the weekend. So we had a lot of computers, laptop, desktop, and then phones, where we were supposed to have coding on it, and windows and everything. But of course, we shot with blank screen. So the first pass was, we did simple stitching in AVP. As you can see, the coverage of each lens is really wide. And it goes, like I was saying before, it goes high enough that it's not going to cut heads. Then after we had a stitched image, we went into post-production to replace all the screens. So first you have to translate your spherical image to a rectilinear view. And then we have some interaction where the hands of the actors were in front of the computer, so we had to rotoscope all those hands out, so that's what we want to insert on the screen. And that's the end result. So basically, you replace the screen, you remove the hand, you replace the screen, and you put the hands back on top. And to the screen, you have to color match with the rest of the room. You have to add back all the reflections on the screen. So basically, it's like normal compositing, I would say, except you do it in a spherical format. And most of this work, we worked with a really good studio. We are lucky to be able to work with Tippett Studio, which is one of really the best in the world. They did Jurassic Park and Star Wars, and they are in Berkeley, where I am, so it was fantastic to work with them. I didn't want to have to do everything myself, even if I could have done it. And most of this was done in Nuke, because it's much easier to have, with all the tools, to do the spherical compositing. And then another part that I want to talk about that is really important, that is 50% of this experience, is about sound design. And we recorded the sound in a pretty traditional way with mics, regular mics on the actors and a boom mic for the ambient sound of the room. But then the sound designer recreated the entire environment, and I'm going to put some sound. So we have different layers of sound. This is in the restaurant. It's just like the other clients eating. Then this one is like the noise of your clothing. When you are in first-person POV, you need to have some subtle cues as to the body being real. So there is the breathing and the closing that. And then this part is just the dialogue.
Here. Only the best for you two, eh? My assistant is a rock star.
Then this is some of the phone ringing and other sound effects, and then the background music in the restaurant. So they did all of that in a spatial sound, so that if people are moving around, you hear the sound moving. Everything is directional. You know where the sounds are coming from. And then in order to control the sound on each side of the story, because you don't want to have overlap between the two stories, but at the same time you need some overlap so that, you know, if you bend your head over, you can hear a little bit of what's going on in the back and you can decide to turn or not. So to be able to do that, we had to choose a spatial sound format that is not ambisonic. Ambisonic wouldn't work because ambisonic reproduces more the natural way that we perceive sound as human beings. So if something is happening behind me, I'm going to hear it. You know, so I couldn't block that out with ambisonic. So what we used instead is called quad binaural, and it's an old format for spatial sound. It's nothing new. And what happens is, like, when you are looking directly in one direction, you hear only the story in this direction.
Not really a cat person either. More of like
So this is on the female side.
No.
And then when you are in this direction, you hear...
Thanks, everyone. Okay, we're going to have to toast when I return.
Absolutely. Great job.
And then when you start turning around in between the two sides, you start to get a mix of both of those. And it's progressive. It's based on your head tracking information. So if you are right in the middle, in between the two stories, then you get like...
Thanks, everyone.
Really
Okay, we're going to have to toast when I return.
Like
Great job, buddy.
So you get everything mixed up, but they still come from the left and the right, the correct direction. And the best is to try it, because otherwise explaining it is a bit difficult. So we finished that. We shot in August last year. We did all the post-production in September, October. We did the first user testing right after the shooting when we had the first rough edit, because it was really important to see, do people understand the story even if they see only half of it, you know, half of each side or whatever, and how do they view it? And we were really pleased that even with no sound design at the really first test, people still got the story and they were interested to watch. We did our first public screening in San Francisco in March this year, and we got really positive responses. People love the fact that they can choose and play, and they are in control of which side they watch. And we have been showing it at Meetup and film festival, like the San Francisco Film Festivals, and we are trying to show it to as many places as we can. And the online distribution, it's not online yet, but here you can see it. I have Gear VR with me, and you can see it on Gear VR. And we're also planning to port and show it on the Vive and the Oculus Rift, but for that we need to port to Unity, because not every video player out there is able to play quad binaural, which is kind of weird, because, you know, it's a very well-known spatial sound format. But anyway, so we have to develop our own player to be able to see it on more platforms than the Gear VR. And that's most of it. So, like I said, I'm giving a workshop at 11:30, which is how to use Nuke. So it's like much more technical, but until then and the rest of the day this afternoon, if you want to see it, I'm going to be upstairs where they have the food, but on the other side, and I'm going to show it. Otherwise, you can go to our Facebook page and like us and check the web page as well, or if you want to know more, you are welcome to ask me questions.
We do have about 5 minutes for questions, so all those quick with the hand.
Thank you. That looks like a very nice experience, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it. I've had the pleasure of experiencing some narrative 360-degree videos before, and I've always found there to be an interesting conflict. There's a narrative going on, and you're immersed in it, you're there, but your actions never never
impact
impact what's going on. So if someone's talking to me and I'm looking the other way, in real life I'd expect a response from that. In video, it's impossible to really do that well. You have two characters. Did you find that for one character this was more of a problem than for the other character?
In terms of how the viewer perceived them or wanted to react?
I think in your story, obviously I haven't experienced the story, but I think at some point the female character will feel excluded from what's going on. So there it could work. But did you play at all with that in the story?
Yes, and usually, yeah, people don't necessarily feel like full empathy for the characters, like in a regular story. That's what we found out. But they do react because they react as if they are the person to whom, you know, the story is happening. So, so it's interesting. Sometimes they talk back. Sometimes they like move their hands and stuff like that. But in terms of the male and female character, we were really careful when we wrote the story that we didn't want to have the male character be the bad guy and the female character be the good, you know, character. That's not the intent. What we wanted to show is that in some of those tech startup, it's really a toxic culture, both for male and female. So on the side of the guy, you know, he's under a lot of pressure because he has to pitch, you know, his new company product to the VCs the next morning and nothing is working. And so he's like very nervous also and has a lot of pressure. He's not necessarily so nice to his team back home who is trying to like solve the problem, and some people have told us like he's a total douchebag. So they don't necessarily empathize with him, but they really enjoyed the side because sometimes we pushed it a little bit more with the VCs, like no one like VC, you know, venture capitalists. So we have a meeting in the restaurant where it's really fun because we pushed it a little bit. So what we try to do is make it enjoyable and engaging for both sides and have a balance and not have, you know,
Cool. All right. One last question.
Oh, okay. Hi, Nathalie. Mark Milstein with Microstock Solutions. I wanted to ask you if you used time markers to record or chronicle the dialogue and or scenes and or locations of the actors within the timeline of the video during your post-production so that you could then go backward into the video and find particular moments or identify certain...
So the only freedom that we had was with the dialogue of the main actors that are in POV. Because you don't see their face, therefore we could change their dialogue. But for the actors who are on screen in the scene, then we couldn't change their dialogue. We didn't like re-record or, you know, sync and everything. So we had a little bit of freedom of changing the dialogue using different bits and pieces if we felt it didn't match. But no, we didn't really use any time warp. We did some cuts and rematching and match morphing. But like in one scene, you have like 4 or 5 people sitting in the meeting, and we cut each one of them at a different time when they were not moving too much and they are not talking, so that we could make the scene shorter because it was dragging too long. So yeah, it's but this is being done in many movies anyway, so it's nothing new, I think.
Great, thanks a lot, Nathalie. That was
Thank
great.
you.